Hi, I'm Jonas from EclipseSource, and in this short video, I will show you my favorite MCP server of the week, the GitHub server. I will demonstrate you 3 simple examples how you can use it in practice to ease your life in software development projects. So let's directly dive into the demonstration. For this demonstration, I will use the Theia IDE. That's a fully open source AI native IDE that you can download and install for free. Link is in the description. However, you could use any AI tool that supports MCP for something similar. So let's quickly set up the GitHub MCP server and then use it for some cool workflows. So the first thing is I have to set up the MCP server. Luckily, the GitHub MCP server is a remote MCP server, so you basically just need to enter URL in the settings and provide a token, and then this tool can already communicate with GitHub via MCP. Second, I have to make it part of my AI workflows. I could do so in the chat, but I want to make it a fixed part of one of my agents so I can use it more conveniently. For that, I open the agent settings. I pick an agent. I will use the architect agent for that. That's an agent that can help software developers with discussion and also prepare the implementation of tasks. So it's a nice candidate. And now I will actually open the prompt of this agent. So in the Theia IDE, all prompts are fully open source and you can even modify them on the fly. So such an extension is very simple. I just paste a new section here and it says GitHub access. If needed, you can access GitHub using the following functions. I tell it the repo name, and now I need to provide the functions that are available from the MCP server. And I can do that very easily by going back to the AI configuration view. That has an overview of all MCP servers, and I just browse here to the GitHub one that I just created and click on this button that will copy all the available functions, and I can paste them here. And now the architect is aware of all the GitHub functions. All right, let's close this and let's directly put that to action. I will show you 3 simple examples what you can do with this cool MCP server. So the first one might be very obvious. You might know if you want to analyze a bug, for example, with AI, you always need to copy the content over, right? And that's very inconvenient. So that's my first example. Instead of copying like a bug description here, what I would just do is I would say add architect. So I talk to the agent that can now talk to GitHub and say analyze bug, and then I just provide a number. Let's see what it does. So now we can see it gets the issue here. And now it looks at the comments. So I will not show you the issue, but it's an issue where there are already quite some comments, or there's a discussion going on. But the advantage of this agent now is it also has access to the code that this bug is about. So we can see it now starts to look at my workspace, it analyzes the code, and it's working on a solution and tries to get its own opinion on what the perfect solution is, right? I will actually leave this running for a while and directly dive into the next example, which is one of my favorite. So do you also know the case in open source projects or closed source project when there's a discussion going on between 2 people about a certain solution, right? And you cannot settle down on a good solution, and you really want a third opinion. Now the question is, what should this third opinion be? And I will show you now how you can make AI a judge when 2 people are basically arguing with each other to just have a third opinion. And by the way, before I do that, here it analyzed the bug. That looks pretty good. So, and what I could do now is I could use this as an input for the coding agent and directly solve this bug, right, without copy pasting it. But let's dive into the second example. For this, I have prepared a prompt. Let me open that so I don't have to type all this. And I just say, hey, what's your opinion on the discussion in, and then I give it a number. And I would just now prompt this to architect again. The other one has been completed. And now again, it gets this issue. And it looks at all the comments again, and it will come up with an opinion on this particular discussion, right? And what's very good about AI for these cases, it's not opinionated, right? It might not have all the knowledge, and it might not be as experienced as a developer or any of these 2 developers, but it is free of emotions, right? So it will come typically up with a very objective opinion. Now we see it starts to summarize the discussion points. You can see I'm also part of this discussion, and it tells me the opinion, right? The well-handled discussion that demonstrate good level of practices, minor suggestion, and so on, right? So now we have a third opinion. Right, and now the third example that I want to show you before I close the video is a little bit more complex, but maybe even more cool. So the third example that I want to prompt to my architect with MCP support now is about documentation. You might know this in project when there's a lot of development going on, that the documentation updates might lag a little bit behind. And I will not just task the AI to update my documentation. I could try that, but usually you have to watch that a little bit more closely as a human would really make sense. But a slightly simpler task that is very suitable for AI is to look at all closed PRs from the last 2 weeks and then check the documentation that is now in this current repo, so I switched repo, if we need to update something. If you think so, give me the links to the PRs and the reasoning. Right? So what I basically ask the AI is look at all the PRs and then look at the documentation and suggest me whether there are any updates needed to my documentation. So let's do that. So I task this again to architect. And to be fair, I should say, I should tell it what today is. Otherwise, because LLMs are stateless, it's not aware of the current date, so it would have a hard time with going 2 weeks back, right? So now we see it started to search the pull request. By the way, we can also see the queries that it does. So for example, here the query is about closed PRs from August 1st, which is exactly 2 weeks in the past, the right repro and so on. And now it should start to analyze these PRs. And what it does now after that is it also checks the documentation that is now located here in this repository, right? So it has both information available. So if we look here, here's the documentation of my project, and now it compares that, and then it comes up with an analysis, right? So here, for example, it says, okay, this PR requires documentation updates because we updated the OpenAI models. We added GPT-5, which probably should be mentioned in the discussion. We updated the function, which makes sense, and so on. So in total, I think there were like 22 PRs, and it was, from what I can see now, it was able to identify the 3 PRs where it actually would make sense to potentially update the documentation. So I could now go into the details and work on updates on the documentation. Right? That were the 3 examples, simple and fast examples, what you can do with the GitHub MCP server. As mentioned, it's currently my favorite one this week. So let's dive into the conclusion. In this video, I've shown you 3 use cases for the GitHub MCP server. In case you like the video, please hit the like button and consider to subscribe to our channel for more content. Be aware that the tool that I used for the demonstration is available as a download for free. It's fully open source. And as you could see in the demonstration, you can very flexibly adapt prompts. You can automate workflows, add MCP servers, even create your own custom agents from scratch to automate your own workflow. It's also worth mentioning that Theia IDE is based on a framework called Theia AI. So if you want to create a fully customized tool in this space, you can use the base technology to create your own tool. And that can look like the Theia IDE, but it can also look completely different because the framework is flexible, that you can adapt literally anything in the UI, but also in the underlying feature set. Finally, if you need help with that, if you need help with your next tool or IDE project in software engineering or any other domain, Eclipsos is here to help. So we have experts that are very experienced in implementing tools, IDEs, and especially if they contain AI. And with that, thank you for watching.